Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another Ivy Games Weekly. I'm Zach Dixon, your host for today. I am joined by Amanda Irvin from Game Brewer. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into talking about Game Brewer's newest game, Stroganov, which is on Kickstarter right now. We'll talk about that a little bit, but just a brief update from IV. I have, of course, not joined by my frequent co-host Austin Harrison, who is out on paternity leave right now. So wishing him well and just a wonderful time with their new little one. We are just a quick IV update. We're working on Build Fate, I'm surrounded off camera by tons of pre-production things that we're looking over. It's looking amazing. Also wanted to shout out that we are doing some play tests of a new game that we're working on in Discord and some Moonrakers expansions. So please join us there. We'd love to have you. We're trying to run weekly play tests right now online. So please get in there, and we'd love to see what you think and get us your feedback. Also, if you've got any questions for Amanda, please put it in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on it as we get moving. But yeah, again, Amanda, thanks for being here. Let's start with Stroganov. It's live on Kickstarter, funded in 2 hours, currently at 182,000 and rising. Yeah, could you just give us a little bit of an overview of Stroganov?
Yeah, so Stroganov is the latest game from designer Andreas Stetting, and he was also the designer of Gugong, which we had previously funded on Kickstarter and had an expansion that released in 2020. And it was the first game I had been aware of before I started working with Game Brewer, that connected Game Brewer with a designer that I loved, because Andreas did Haunted Teutonica, which is my personal favorite game of all time.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm
That's
very
amazing.
excited about Stroganov to have a new game from him. I have briefly only met him. The rest of the team is in Europe. I'm in the States, so I don't really know the designer, but it still feels like a connection. And his latest game is sort of hard to put into the traditional terms we use when talking about games. So it's not really a worker placement in the sense that there is a spot that you put a worker, but you do have workers, your Cossacks, that you are sending out across the board, going left to right and trying to move farther and further. But you can't just move as far as you want. There's no die, so it's not really a roll and move mechanic. It's sort of you want to move your Cossack. You can pay horses to send them further, but horses are a valuable resource that you might not have. And the farther out you send your workers, the better furs that you can start to hunt, or landscapes that you can earn. And the regions that are out on the board correspond to certain actions that you can take. So your one worker is going to be able to do all of those things from one space. They're not moving around from space to space, and you don't have a variety of workers that you're putting in different locations. You're really trying to position yourself to be in a space that allows you to have all those options. Now, you can choose to leave marks, outposts in different regions that then allow you to have more flexibility as the game goes on. So even if I'm over here at the beginning, if earlier in a different round I went farther out and was able to leave that mark, that outpost in that section, I can then take the actions from a variety of locations, which gives you more flexibility. So yeah, the game is moving these Cossacks out. You're trying to establish outposts in different areas that you can hunt a variety of furs. Now, the animals themselves, I'm not a huge fan of hunting, but they're really cute. And maybe you're just
Same.
uh, collecting the furs that have already been murdered, and you have, I don't know,
Yeah.
but so you have these cute little animals. I don't think about what happens to them, and you can use them to exchange to create favors for the Tsar, and you can trade them at the market, and they're sort of like your currency. Now, there are coins, but coins themselves operate a little bit different from how the furs are operating, which is more of the direct transactional currencies in the game. And the Czar himself is the cards that are in the game. There's not very many cards. It's mostly out on the board, but they give you objectives, things that you're aiming for. If you can collect certain sets of types of animals, you'll be able to then spend those to have in-game help or end-game scoring points or in-game scoring points. And there are points to be had in a variety of places. So you're not really stuck into one thing. So let's say you're not able to get the furs that you need to do the cards. As people are hunting and clearing the tiles with furs, you can actually collect the different landscapes that are out on the board and make sets of those and collect points from those. You also get points for having those outposts I mentioned out on the board. And if you can get all of your outposts out, you'll get even more points. But the space is limited. So you won't be able to do everything you want. Maybe something that you set out to do for your strategy, you find you aren't able to do, and then you have to adapt. But what I like about the game is you are able to adapt. I am not a fan of games where you set out to do something, get stuck, and then you spend 2 hours watching everybody else get points, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can adapt, which is great. So
that's awesome.
That, in a little nutshell, is Stroganov, and I could probably talk about it forever. But it is, it's not intuitive, so the learning curve is a little bit steeper. But the gameplay itself, once you know how it functions, is quite smooth. So you're moving your Cossack, and then you're able to do a series of actions, and your turn is over. But you are limited in what your actions are based on your placement. So, yeah.
Well, I love it. I mean, we were drawn to it as soon as we saw it coming down the line on Kickstarter. I also just love the art. The illustrations are stunning. Like it really checks all the boxes for me. Like it combines I think like a unique blend of genres, which is something that like we really love to do in our own games, but then also like combines with really great art direction and really beautiful illustrations. So kudos to the whole team. It looks amazing.
Well, I won't butcher the poor artist's name here. I
was hoping I wouldn't have to do that. So
I know, but sorry, I should have practiced before on here. But he just did an interview with Raphael, our graphic and art director of the project, that you can find on our YouTube page. That's really worth checking out if you want to know more about the art. It was a half-hour thing, quite detailed. He really talks about his process and his research that he did to create and match and line up with the theme. I, too, am a huge fan of the art, which is probably why I don't want to hunt the little animals, because they're so cute. But it's quite beautiful. And the landscape tiles themselves in our Kickstarter, because we met our social media goals, they're going to be different in all of them. So instead of having some of them repeat, like the different, like mountain is the same as this mountain, they're all going to be different now because of our awesome backers and how people really supported us in some of our stretch goals there. So he's been sending us even more art that we can look at for the game. That's just fantastic. That I'm really excited to see it finally when it's produced. It's going to look gorgeous.
I know. I think I saw target delivery of October, I think is what it was.
I mean, yes, quick. As much as anyone right now can set target dates, there's not a lot that needs to be changed, like post Kickstarter. Like some games, you go into it knowing like, oh, we're going to want feedback, or you're going to see what people are responding to certain things. But with Andreas' game, it's real solid going into it. So the additions and things that we can add on and change shouldn't slow down production at all. So we are hopeful that can be a target date, as we are hopeful that there will be a in-person convention at Spiel, which is where they like to release their games. Even if it's not in person, to have it virtually released like we did last year for Paris would be quite nice. But again, there's shipping delays and there's cargo ship problems, and we know. So, but you got
Oh
to
yeah.
set your goals, and we were able to do it with Paris. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do it with Stroganov. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, as I said before, the campaign's still live, and there seems to be some really cool stretch goals. Do you have any favorite stretch goals that we're all kind of working towards unlocking together?
Well, I already mentioned the ones I was most excited about, which was having the
Okay.
individualized art on all of the landscape tiles, because the art is so beautiful and each one's like a little mini painting. I believe we got all the silk screen stretch goals for all the pieces, which is going to look really nice to have them
Yeah, that's great.
have that on the wooden components. So no, at this point, we're just very thankful and grateful for how far it's come already and the support that we've
Mm.
seen, just because there's a lot either coming out now or still some uncertainty. And so it's been really nice to see us reach a lot of those stretch goals already.
Yeah, no, that's great. Um, well, we were talking a little bit. I would love to also just kind of get into your story. You've had a few different kind of angles on the board game industry with buying games for a board game shop, Blue Highway Games in Seattle. But I want to back up. How did you get into board games? What was kind of your entry into this hobby and now profession?
Well, I have always played games since I was little. In fact, uh, recently my parents joked that if they knew that I would try to make a career out of board games, they probably wouldn't have had me play them all day, every day, on my days off and in evenings. But I mean, they're joking, but I don't think they ever
Yeah.
foresaw me ending up here. I'm a child of the 80s. And so a lot of people, of course, think, oh, that means Monopoly and such. But for some reason, I feel like I had this awesome access to a wide range of games. And even back then, I had a closet full of board games. And of course, things like Scotland Yard have held on and still
Hmm.
been popular, or
Yeah.
Survive had a reprint that came out, which was one that I had as a kid and played a ton. So while I did have all the familiar classics, I also had Cathedral and
Mm.
just a whole host of games coming out of Europe. I'm from Canada originally, and maybe that was part of it. But uh, board gaming has been a huge part of my life from as long as I can remember. And then through university, that was when Catan was having its kind of introduction over here. And, people more back then talked about it like, hey, have you heard of this game called Catan? Like, I don't know, some kind of drug or something, but like the cool kids knew what it was,
It
and I was
kind
like,
of
I
is.
gotta play this
Yeah.
game, and that became I think my senior of university. I spent all my free time like hunting down games of Catan to play. So I will not knock that game. I don't play it anymore. I've certainly moved past the enjoyment that I got from it, but it means a lot to me, as it does to many
Mm.
people. But by no means do I even credit that as my intro. And then when I was working in Seattle for a nonprofit, I needed another job just because the city is expensive and nonprofit work doesn't pay well. So Blue Highway had just opened up in Seattle on Queen Anne, and I thought, hey, that'd be a great weekend job to have working with board games since I love them so very much, and I can get a good discount. And as you can see, I worked there a long time and made
Yeah.
great use of my employee discount. So it
Yes.
started out small, just on weekends, but it grew, as did my collection.
Yes. No, the chat is
Yeah,
very impressed with your collection. It's quite the wall
this
of
is only
games, and
part of it.
I know. I
The
was
wall
gonna
goes
say it
on
looks like
in,
it.
in either
Yeah, it looks like
direction.
it expands. Yes.
Floor to
Um,
ceiling. I'm not, I curate and I do get rid of games. I don't just hoard them, but,
nice.
14 plus years working in retail with a discount, I've definitely uh, come and seen some games come and go. But uh, the Yeah, I started. Blue Highway has meant a lot to me. I still work there part time now, even overlapping with Game Brewer. There were many years where it turned into my only job, and I was manager of the store. Practically lived there all the time, and moved into doing a lot of the buying for the store. So um, as I started transitioning with Game Brewer, I've held on to a lot of that buying, especially during the pandemic. I can do that from home, and so I'm able to kind of keep things coming into the shop and do so remotely, which has been very nice. So
That's great.
I if I as long as I'm in Seattle, I see myself staying somehow connected to that store. The community that
Mm.
is around is some of the best in board gaming, and I really hope to have game nights return at some point to be able to see
Someday.
all of my friends from the store. But for now, it's holding on through this, and they've kept us supported, which is nice to see people shopping local and buying from their friendly local game stores.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. Tell me a little bit about game buying. Like, do you almost see yourself as like a curator for your local community? Then, like, what are you looking out for when buying games? Yeah, just tell me a little bit more about what that's like.
It's a little bit of both because we do want to curate what's on our shelves. We definitely lean towards strategy gaming, family gaming, Euro gaming. We don't have a lot of minis, but we do have games that have minis in them, and less of the RPG, and even a little bit less on the collectible card game side. But we do definitely have a strong Magic community and Keyforge and
Mm,
Pokemon. But um, the buying is also to go with your audience. So we don't necessarily want to only bring in games that I find interesting. It's like we have to know what our community's in. And we learned fairly early on that the neighborhood we're in is largely kid and family oriented. So I would say
mm,
a good third of our store is devoted to younger games and family gaming. So whereas a lot of game stores might not have quite that same presence, we definitely have a wall or two of Haba games and other companies that are starting to do more and more of the family side of things. But and classics, like you can't I don't play Catan, but of course the gaming community is still all over that game, and it's a
oh
huge
yeah.
thing for us to kind of keep up on what's going on in the world of Catan and Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne, and but also try to bring in those games that are a little more niche. For years, one of the things I really like to do was bring in imports from Europe and Asia and around the world, as people maybe weren't bringing those games over as early or as quickly after some international conventions. We would even go to those conventions and ship back pallets of games to be able to have kind of
Mm,
those more niche titles for our consumers, which is actually how I met Game Brewer in a lot of that. But uh, the now a lot of those games are coming over a lot faster, and companies have partnerships that kind of funnel them from Taiwan or Korea or Belgium and Germany to the States faster, which is great because then I don't have to stress about it. I just go to our regular distribution channels and are able to order some of these great games in, and then I can play them. So that's great too.
yeah. So you also mentioned that you managed the store for a little while, and it sounds like a big part of Blue Highway was also that community. Could you tell me just a little bit about, like, I mean, we've had some experience building an online community, but like, I mean, at this point, a good majority of like our life as a games company has been forced to be online. But as far as
Mm-hmm.
like, what were some of the things that you did to kind of cultivate that local board game community?
Well, in the first few years when they opened, and I was still only there part time, that was 2007, and a lot of people would walk into the store and be like, "What is this?" Because we had tables in the back and a free library of games, and we didn't charge. We weren't a cafe. We didn't sell even snacks or beer or anything. Over the years, we have adapted to have uh, beer and ciders, as well as sodas and candies and pops and chips and all that sort of stuff. We aren't big enough to have established a restaurant. I think if they were to open the store now, it would have that sizable draw as well. But most of what brought people in was the novelty of it initially. And then they would create events to try to cultivate people to come back. And we did board game tournaments, which were very popular, monthly tournaments
Oh,
where
nice.
you would know the game at the start of the month, and at the end of the month, everybody would come and play the same game in sort of a little round tournament, and the winner would get their name on a plaque on the wall. And so then people would come in and say, what are these plaques on the wall? And you'd be like, well, we have these tournaments that you can come and play. And then there were people who wanted less competition. So we opened a kind of a meet and greet night where we would not let anyone sit down until right at the starting point. And then we'd make sure everybody who wanted to was matched up with someone to have a person to play a game with. And then everybody could start playing games. And that grew to huge popularity where we'd have to start turning people away. And then we would do a beer and board game pairing night where we'd feature local breweries and have them even come in and give away swag and glasses. And so then you would be able to test some of their beers while you played games. And so for board game community, we did that. Now the Magic Pokemon community grew instantly from the beginning from those communities that just were looking for more places to play, which is easy. Yep. And of course you want to be accommodating to that. So we've always had a big Magic community and a big Pokemon community, especially Pokemon being the family-oriented side. We definitely had a larger presence in Pokemon than maybe initially conceived. But yeah, so it's been, and we have people who do playtest nights, since I know you do some development of games. Playtest Northwest is a group that is not affiliated with us, but they kind of rotate to different stores to be able to playtest games. And we were able to, kind of help give them another space for them to meet and play. And so we've had lots of designers of different games in our store at various times. And it's kind of neat to have known them when they were testing out their prototypes on our tables to then having them become games now. And Seattle's got a big game community. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love I still look forward to being able to do things in person, and we've got a building that we're like trying to like get ready to actually have like a place to be again, so that I'm really looking forward to that.
Wow. Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about Game Brewer. How did you get connected with them, and what's your role like with them these days?
Yeah, so I had met them when we were trying to bring some imports over faster back in 2000 and probably 17, I want to say, is when I first knew. I think it was Gugong was the first game from them that I was aware of, and I wanted to buy a bunch for the store, bring them in because again I love Andreas Stetting, and so then a few years later, so 2019, I was thinking I had done about as much as I could in the world of board gaming at Blue Highway. Well, I could probably stay there forever. I like learning new things. So I wanted to get another part-time job and kind of pare back Blue Highway a little bit to try to learn more about the industry. And so Game Brewer was hiring for somebody to do sort of the US marketing and US convention circuit. And that was the end of 2019. So, spoiler, I didn't go to any conventions in 2020, but they still kept me on. And Game Brewer has very graciously created a place for me within their company. So while I'm not going to Gen Cons and Origins and having booths for Game Brewer, we've been doing some of that online, and we've got some of our games on Tabletopia. And then myself personally have been doing a lot more writing and editing, so more of the marketing copy. Of course, they already have Raphael on staff, who is the most amazing artistic director, and any company would be super lucky to have him, but we've got him. And so I don't do a whole lot of the visual side of the marketing, but the written side. And I apologize, I live above an alley, and that's probably very loud. I don't know if you can hear that, but
no,
crashing
it's totally
of a
fine.
dump truck. Oh, okay.
No,
I can
say, I'm pretty
barely
sure
hear myself talking, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure my 1-year-old was crying into the mic earlier. So
oh wow,
welcome. We're all home. Yeah.
That's right.
Um, no, that's great, and it's just great to see the games that are coming out of Game Brewer. I read that this is their 10th Kickstarter, which is just so impressive. And I think you're saying that you've been there through 3 of them, and with a goal of launching 4 a year, which um, is very ambitious and incredible. And it seems like that you all have a great process for yeah, for putting those out. Yeah, could you speak to that process and that level of output, because it's really impressive.
Yeah, so uh, I think initially had wanted to do both Kickstarter and regular retail releases and kind of come up with a simultaneous process. Of course, starting out as a new company, Kickstarter is a much easier way to reach a larger audience and have
Hmm.
that kind of already connected for you. And it was with me and in 2020 that we were supposed to have some of that divergence happening. But without that, they knew that they could, still count on that Kickstarter audience from their home and be able to uh, um, utilize that while we're all stuck at home. So
Yeah.
they are a few years out. So they'll have people who are making pitches of games, and then they find a title that they want to do. So even though I've been there since 2019, they haven't. I think they may have acquired 1 or 2 that hadn't been there since before I started, for looking forward to like 2022, 2023. So there's kind of a
Okay.
2-year time lag there, because they need to be prepping those in order to have them play tested and structured for a year or 2 down the road, plus the beautiful artwork. And that's something that's very important, and finding and paying a variety of illustrators, and ones whose art style will maybe more match the theme of the game, or trying some more unusual artists that may not have had quite the same resume yet with board games,
Hmm.
but are nonetheless fantastic illustrators. And so that just takes time. Now, of course, it's been tricky with playtesting this last year.
Oh
So
yeah.
I mean, our 4 year schedule is ambitious, and it may be that we can't, or I don't know, but because we do need to have
Yeah.
that ability to bring in the audience to the games and have a variety of people trying and testing them out, as the developers in Belgium tweak the product. Because if it's, I should have spent more time introducing Game Brewer, but they are a Belgian company based out of a small town in northeastern Belgium, near the border of the Netherlands. So they are a Dutch-speaking Belgian company, and I am the only one here in the States currently. So all of the work and things are mostly run from Europe. But
Got it.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's great. Sorry,
that was
I
kind of
should have
roundabout explanation. Sorry, I'm distracted by this dump
no.
truck, which is apparently going to be there for the rest of this interview. So
No, it's all good. My daughter just came up to me too, so it's great. We just welcome it
yeah,
all. Uh no, that's great. And it's yeah, it's been such an interesting pivot with COVID, because I feel like so much of what we do and what we hope to do, and we make things that are designed for in-person connection and
yes.
in-person playing, and going to conferences and seeing what people like about them. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you've done, that like ways that you've kind of adapted to that change, that you think have gone well so far? I know you mentioned playtesting on Tabletopia, doing some maybe
Well,
Twitch
yes, yeah,
streams.
yes, and those were all things that I'm a analog board gamer Luddite. 100% grew up not being allowed to play video games. Like, I am not supposed to be operating in a virtual world, but I'm making it work. And for the sake of Game Brewer, people not myself are putting the games on Tabletopia so that we can play remotely. And we were able to do some connection with actual customers and playing some games in the Discord channel, which was also something a few months or a year ago, if you told me I'd be doing, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't understand the words that you are speaking. But um, so able to connect with people from around the world to all play one board game at the same time. It was kind of a neat experience, a silver lining, if you will. And then And again, returning to the strength of the Kickstarter backers. And a lot of people say, okay, well, Game Brewer, why are you kickstarting? You're a larger company. In essence, there's still,
Yeah.
I think there's only 4 full-time employees and 2 or 3 of us that are part-time thereabouts. But um, they're still small and they're still growing. And yes, the plan obviously someday in the future is to be more like those bigger companies that can choose Kickstarter for certain projects and then also just do releases. But for now, we're grateful for the ability to reach our audience directly and have that feedback and interaction with the backers immediately. And so it's that part, I guess, was a pivot, even though it was what they'd already been doing. So in that sense, it doesn't look any different, and it certainly wasn't hard to adapt to going to the Kickstarter model. But we've been very grateful to be able to have already had that base.
No, that's great. Love that. Yeah, and we're also very much in a similar boat too. Like, would love to be able to go direct to market, but Kickstarter just provides, not only a way to like help with the funding because it is very expensive to make games, but also like really engage with the community and have them involved in that process, which is so fun. Well, we've been very recently ending each episode with a couple smaller fun questions. So first one, what's the most recent game you've gotten to a table? And I will accept a virtual table, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you've gotten something to the table in real life recently.
So for Blue Highway Games, I have been doing, since we don't have game nights or anything else to talk about on our social media, I've been doing weekly features of certain games that we then have discounted, which we don't normally discount, some newer titles or that sort of thing. And we do a specific theme. And then I do a live stream of that on Friday mornings through Blue Highway's Twitch stream. And so, about an hour before I joined you here today, I had on my table set up for this live Twitch stream a few dexterity games. So we had, I was trying to do a kids game.
Nice.
I had Rhino Hero out there, followed shortly by Mega City Oceania, sliding some things across my table. And I didn't play that game. But I was able to play a game of game of cat and mouse, which is the new dexterity game from the Exploding Kittens people. And it is this, if I had it out still, but you pull it and it's got a giant cat in the middle and these little magnetic cat paws on either end. And you pull them back and they fling these little yellow rubber balls at this cat, and you're trying to go through the mouth and you want to knock the teeth out or the nose out and have the balls end up on the other side. So my husband and I were able to play a tournament of this last night, which I lost miserably. But it was a lot of fun, and it was the last full game I had on my table.
Very nice.
A game of cat and mouse.
I love that. Okay, a quick one: meeples or minis?
Meeples. I don't think I need
meeples.
To say that. I'll just lean over.
Okay. Favorite game right now? Like if you had like a desert island game, what would that be for you right now?
Well, that's always hard to answer because Desert Island is different than favorite game right now.
You're right.
Island,
okay.
I'm taking either like Haunted Teutonica or something that's like personal to me, like Princes of Florence.
Okay.
But favorite right now has to be Hallertau from Uwe Rosenberg, that new one that came out. I've managed to get it to the table solo and 2-player. Because I don't have other game nights, but it played really well solo. I quite enjoyed it. It wasn't overly complicated. In fact, played very similarly to not having a solo game, having someone else play with you. And I have solo is the way I have personally adapted during quarantine because I never played solo before.
Really?
2020? Not really. Just to maybe like learn a game, set it up, and kind of. But like to actually like, okay, tonight is game night with myself, and I'm going to play Viticulture or Wingspan or
I love that.
Architects of the West Kingdom. So I've been buying games that have solo variants now, which is something I never personally looked at. But Hallertau would be my current favorite.
No, that's amazing. Okay, and my last one for you: game that you own that you haven't played yet that you can't wait to get to the table right now. I imagine, I don't know, maybe you've played every single game on that wall, but if is there one standing out that you're like, oh, I can't wait to get this to the table?
Lately, I did buy well, let's see, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it. Praga Capvit Regini. Is that how you say
Oh,
that? I can hold it up
I
here.
have no idea.
The like, oh, it's here we go. Here we go. Visual aid.
Oh, nice. Oh, Rio, nice.
It
That's
has
awesome.
solo. It has solo,
Okay.
and it's Suchi. I can't say his name either. Man, I need to brush up on my Eastern European pronunciation of names, but
Oh, same,
there we go.
same.
Vladimir Suchi. So I'm very excited to play it. It has a solo. I haven't played it yet.
No, that's great. No, yeah, I haven't dove into much like solo gameplay. I've for whatever reason. I guess I guess if I have like solo game time, I usually play video games, but like, I feel like
Mm.
I should maybe break that habit and pull out some single player games because I've got plenty of games that have single player modes. Um,
Yes, and
but
more are now, which
yeah.
and they're getting better and better, which is nice. I think back in the day, there was when I first started Blue Highway, there that wasn't a thing, and I think forget which game came out. It might have been Agricola. I'm not sure that had a solo version that people were like, "What solo board gaming?"
Yeah.
Or at least in my world, I'm sure there's people out there solo gaming for decades. But I have one question for you.
Please, yeah.
So the game brewer, the question we always ask is, what kind of brew do you
Oh,
prefer? Then you can say like a
oh, I love
coffee or a
that.
tea or a beer. And the correct answer is Belgian beer. But go ahead and say whichever you prefer.
Okay, it's definitely beer, followed up by coffee and then, tea if I have to. But I love a good triple, a Belgian triple,
Mm,
especially paired with
nice.
like a good bratwurst. But no, I'm in like a hazy New England IPA kind of person. There's a wonderful brewery in Nashville called Bearded Iris that I love. And it's 4 p.m. on a Friday, and I'm just counting down the minutes until I can crack one open here in a little bit. It's going to be great. So, what about you?
Fantastic.
Is your answer a Belgian brew or
Um, I am unfortunately a celiac, so if they have
okay,
gluten-free Belgian beer, I'm
nice,
all over it. And I used to very much love the giant indie beer scene here in Seattle. But
yeah,
lately it's been more on the tea end of the spectrum,
okay,
which is why I made them
yeah.
change the question because I was like, not everyone drinks beer. But
That's
I
true.
do miss beer, and there's some good gluten-free beers out there.
There
So
are. I've had some like I feel like people are really stepping up their game because a lot more people obviously are gluten free, even by choice, like just from a dietary
yeah,
reason. And so I feel like I've been impressed. I've had some like this is tasty. So like hoping for
yeah,
more of that in the future, honestly. Um,
me too.
but yeah. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to have you and chat for a little bit.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting me join you.
Yeah, yeah. So again, Stroganov is on Kickstarter right now. You can go search for that. 6 days left. Please go back it. We're gonna back it. Excited to play. And as always, come hang out with us on Discord. Play test some games. Thank you all for watching. That's our show. Bye bye, everybody. All right. Hopefully we're out. We're out. All right. That's great.
Okay. I'm like, oh,
I know. I know.
all right. Well, thank
We
you.
gotta. Yeah. No. Thank you. This was great. Yeah, what are do you have any big weekend plans? You